In dozens of developing nations, the global calorie supply dictates internal stability. When the cost of a basic loaf spikes beyond a certain threshold, the result is immediate civil unrest. For decades, the flow of global grain operated as a decentralized free market. Prices and shipments were managed by a web of private, multinational trading houses. By April 2026, that system has been systematically dismantled. The world's largest wheat exporter has moved to consolidate the market under state-managed logistics. Through corporate seizures and state mandates, Russia converted its agricultural output into a permanent weapon of foreign policy, designed to force international compliance. Moscow recognized that controlling the price of a loaf of bread offers a highly reliable, non-kinetic method of projecting power, one that is often more effective than traditional military threats. The physical scale of Russian agriculture provides the baseline for this strategy. The country routinely harvests nearly 140 million tons of grain annually. To control that volume, the Kremlin first purged the market of foreign competition. Over the past 2 years, massive international brokers like Cargill and Viterra were pushed entirely out of the Russian supply chain. Simultaneously, state-aligned banks swept in and nationalized the critical grain terminals along the Black and Azov Seas. Today, the export market is dominated by a state-sanctioned Big Three, companies like GrainGates, Aston, and OZK. Together, they control over 55% of all shipments, executing Kremlin directives directly. This chart shows how Russia acts as a central coordinator for wheat. On the left is their massive domestic harvest, but instead of flooding the market with that abundance, they artificially restrict what flows into the global pipeline. They enforce a rigid quota system. By capping exports at 20 million tons for the first half of 2026, they intentionally starve the global market of excess supply. This restriction allows the Ministry of Agriculture to enforce informal price floors, historically around $250 per metric ton. It guarantees revenue for the state treasury and stops local companies from selling grain too cheaply. Domestically, the surplus keeps local bread prices low, securing social peace at home. Globally, the restricted supply forces the rest of the world to absorb the inflationary pressure. The impact of this manufactured scarcity hits hardest in the import-dependent nations of the global south, where a few cents difference dictates whether families eat. Russia uses this volatility to its advantage by offering loyalty discounts. Nations that maintain diplomatic neutrality or support Moscow receive stable government-to-government pricing that completely bypasses the erratic global market. When conflicts disrupted shipping in the Strait of Hormuz in 2026, causing fertilizer and fuel prices to spike, Russia capitalized. By keeping their inland and Black Sea routes operational, they secured a record 37% of their total output in the Middle East. Further south, in the African Sahel, in nations like Mali and Burkina Faso, the strategy evolves into a guns-for-grain model. Moscow deploys its Africa Corps to provide regime security, paired with emergency free shipments of wheat. In return, they extract lucrative mining concessions and secure crucial votes at the United Nations. As Western humanitarian programs and sanctions-led aid initiatives pull back from these regions, Russian deliveries rush in to fill the vacuum. Developing nations find themselves locked in a dependency loop. When the immediate survival of your population is on the line, political independence takes a back seat to securing the next grain shipment. Grain transactions are no longer standard commerce. In the current market, these deals function as direct purchases of Kremlin political goodwill, and if that goodwill fades, trade slows down. Russia deploys non-tariff barriers, sudden FSB security inspections in the Kerch Strait, or abrupt health and safety claims, acting as a silent bureaucratic blockade to choke off shipments to unfriendly states. This capacity is actively expanding. By integrating highly productive agricultural land from occupied Ukraine into their supply chain, Russia increases its market share while physically eliminating a major global competitor. They hold the controls to a global geopolitical thermostat. They can turn up the heat by inducing localized inflation or offer the warm embrace of stable supply contracts to their allies. By consolidating control over one of the world's primary breadbaskets, Russia has ensured that any nation choosing to oppose its interests must simultaneously choose to let its own people go hungry.